Mark Meadows is Trump's chief of staff, and he went on CNN. He spoke to Jake Tapper, and he admitted something here that got him in trouble, but there's no way of spinning it. This was honest.
Your website is talking about, well, now we think the spread is coming from small social groups and family groups. First it was large groups. Now it's small groups.
It's
now
coming from all sorts of places.
Well,
it's
that's
coming from
exactly,
all sorts of places
that's
because
exactly
the pandemic's
point.
out of control.
So here's what we have to do. We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation.
Why aren't we going to get control of the pandemic?
Because it is a contagious virus, just like the flu.
Yeah, but why not make efforts to contain it?
Well, we are making efforts to contain it.
By running all over the country, not wearing a mask?
Jake,
that's what the vice president's doing.
We can get into the back and forth. Let me just say this, is what we need to do is make sure that we have the proper mitigation factors, whether it's therapies or vaccines or treatments, to make sure that people don't die from this. But to suggest that we're going to actually quarantine all of America, lock down our economy.
No one's saying that.
Well, they are. Joe Biden's saying that. He says lock everybody down. We're going to have a dark winter. We're going to have a dark winter.
That's what health officials say. That's what health officials say, that it's going to get worse.
No,
we
that's
had the
Joe Biden's
worst days.
Jake, let's be honest.
Infections, Friday and Saturday.
Let's be honest here. The health officials did not say dark winter. Those were Joe Biden's words.
He was quoting a health official. I think he was quoting William Haseltine.
When we look at the number of cases increasing, what we have to do is make sure that we fight it with therapeutics and vaccines, take proper mitigation factors in terms of social distancing and masks when we can. And when we look at this, we're going to defeat it, Jake, because we're Americans. We do that, and this president is leading while Joe Biden is sitting there suggesting that we're going to mandate masks.
The president is holding rallies all over the country.
That's correct.
No
In fact,
masks,
we're leaving.
No masks required, no distancing. There have already been, according to health officials, contact tracing. There have already been cases of individuals in Minnesota and in Washington, D.C., and in Oklahoma that got the virus at these Trump rallies that Dr. Fauci himself called a super spreader event, the one at the White House.
There's also been contact tracing, Jay.
So I don't know if you caught it at the beginning there, but he admitted it. He said, quote, "We aren't going to control the pandemic." I'm not sure if he used the word pandemic or virus. We aren't going to control the virus, or we aren't going to control the pandemic. He admitted it. He said that. And then he went on to say, really, what our goal is now is to get the vaccine as soon as possible, or get the therapeutics, the medicine, as soon as possible, and get it across the country. That's what he's saying. Now, by the way, last night, stumbled across a story in, I believe it's El Paso, Texas, and some other places around the country. The outbreak is so bad, the hospitals are at capacity or beyond capacity, and when people show up, they have to airlift them to other facilities. And they're telling people, hey, listen, don't show up, basically, unless you're on the verge of death. We've been in this pandemic for a long time, and we still have issues like that, where the virus is so immensely out of control that facilities are totally full. I'm sorry, but that is without a doubt a failure of leadership. It's a failure of leadership at the federal level. It's a failure of leadership at the state level. So when he says, hey, we're not going to control the pandemic, that's him waving the white flag. That's the Trump administration waving the white flag. And the evidence of it, as Jake Tapper's pointing out, beyond just what he's saying here, the evidence of it is 5 people around Mike Pence were just diagnosed with COVID-19. In response to that, is he going to follow the federal guidelines and quarantine? No, he's not. In fact, his schedule is exactly the same. So 5 people he was in close contact with have COVID-19. Instead of quarantining, he's going to continue with his normal schedule. Trump's rallies, which he's been doing around the country, experts are saying, just so you know, these are super spreader events, and wherever he goes, he leaves in his wake a lot more cases of COVID-19, and then in turn, a lot more people go to the hospital, and some people die. So his own rallies are super spreader events. His own rallies. So when Meadows says, well, we should, where we can, wear masks and do social distancing, they're not even doing it when they go places. You can't even control COVID-19 in the White House. Why should I think you're going to control it in any states or the country? You can't even control it in the White House. Guys, listen. I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. Okay? And doctors, there are many doctors who disagree. But here's what I do know. What I do know is a policy as simple as a national mask mandate could save at least 100,000 lives. 100,000 lives. So just the fact that these dipshits are not doing a national mask mandate means they're dooming Americans to die, and it's the equivalent of roughly 2 Vietnam wars with the American casualties, because there was over 1 million Vietnamese who were killed. But there was about, I think, 56,000 or so Americans who died in the Vietnam War. So they basically want to have 2 Vietnams because they refuse to do the basic thing of a national mask mandate. I'm sorry, listen, that's not too much to ask. I'm as big on individual freedom as anybody. I always say that when it comes to social issues, I'm very libertarian in the sense that I think live and let live is the way to go. I want the government out of people's lives. But if you're telling me that a national mask mandate, something that simple, can save over 100,000 lives, well, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. Because it's not really a restriction on your freedom any more so than a seatbelt law is a restriction on your freedom. And there's nobody in today's day and age going around screaming at the government to, let me live free or die. I'm not going to buckle this up. Just a national mask mandate. Now you can get into, well, how do you enforce it and all those questions. Those are legitimate questions. And I don't know the answer to those things. But if you set a culture from the top down of, hey, it's the American thing to do, it's the patriotic thing to do, to wear a mask whenever you go out somewhere in public, whenever you're indoors in an enclosed area with other people, that could save over 100,000 lives. They won't even do that. They won't even do that. So everybody around Pence just got COVID. He's not quarantining. Trump is going around the country with these super spreader events. By the way, actively part of his rally/stand-up routine, he's making fun of the media for continuing to talk about COVID nonstop. They won't even do a national mask mandate, and now his chief of staff is like, we're not going to control the pandemic. Okay, so you're also no longer going to be in the White House. That's what's going to happen. You do understand that, right? That COVID is the most important issue to the American people because it's affecting everybody and everything. So, okay, you're not going to control the pandemic. You're not going to do serious leadership. You're going to be a complete mess like you were from the beginning. Fair enough. Then you're gonzo. You're done. It's over. So, I mean, it really is quite an admission, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to do the vaccine and the therapeutics. Those are going to come whenever they're going to come. Doesn't matter how many times Trump picks up the phone and tries to berate a pharma company, which apparently there were reports that he was like, we got to rush the vaccine. And they're like, hey, idiot, the way it works is we have to test to make sure it works. That's why it takes as long as it takes. It's because there are steps to ensure it functions. And he's like, no, I just skipped the steps. Doesn't matter how many times he does that. The therapeutics and the vaccine are going to come when they're going to come. So this is a non-plan. He's broadcasting to the world. We have a non-plan. All right, TikTok. Your ass is about to get kicked to the curb.